Don't listen to this alone in the dark. Before this story starts, I need you to do one thing. Don't turn toward your bedroom door. Because when I finally looked at mine, something was already there, watching me from the crack. I only went back into that bedroom because I thought I had left my phone on the dresser. And at first, there was nothing wrong with the room at all. My lamp was still on. The ceiling fan was making that soft clicking noise it always made on the low setting. My window unit was pushing out cold air in short, rattling bursts. My blanket was half on the floor because I had kicked it off earlier, and one of my socks was still by the foot of the bed where I had dropped it after work. It was late, but it was normal late. The kind where your body already feels heavy and your eyes keep losing focus for a second at a time. I had brushed my teeth, turned off the hall light, and walked to the kitchen for water, already thinking about getting back in bed. I remember standing by the sink with a glass in my hand and hearing the fan in my room from down the hall, hearing the air conditioner hum, hearing the apartment settle the way it always did. And I remember how ordinary it all felt, because that is the part that stays with me now. Nothing felt wrong until I stepped back toward my bedroom and saw that the door was not open the way I had left it. It was almost shut, just enough space left for the lamp inside to cut a thin line of yellow into the hallway. I stopped because I knew I had not left it like that. I live alone. I am careful about little things. I notice whether doors are open or closed because I always leave my bedroom open when I am moving around at night. I stood there with the glass in my hand, staring at that narrow crack, telling myself maybe the air had pulled it inward. Maybe the draft from the window unit had moved it. Maybe I had bumped it without noticing when I walked out. That was what I told myself while I stood there listening, because the hallway suddenly felt too still. I could still hear the fan, but it sounded farther away than it should have. The lamplight was steady. Nothing moved across the line of light at the bottom. I took another step closer and waited to hear something small and normal from inside. Something like the bedsheet moving from the air or the cheap hanger on my closet rod tapping the door. And instead I heard a slow, wet inhale from somewhere inside the room. It was quiet, but it was too heavy to be the air conditioner and too close to be outside. I remember my whole arm going cold around the glass. I said, "Hello?" And the second the word left my mouth, I hated that I said anything at all, because the room went completely silent, like something inside had been listening, and it stopped on purpose. I stood there so long my hands started to shake, and the water in the glass moved against the sides. I should have turned every light on right then. I should have gone straight for the front door. Instead, I took another step toward my bedroom because my brain was still trying to force everything into something I could understand. I kept thinking maybe an animal had gotten in through the window. Maybe a raccoon, maybe a stray cat. Something stupid and impossible for a second-floor apartment, but still better than what my body already knew. I reached the doorway slowly, and when I was close enough, I leaned just enough to look through the gap without touching the door. I saw my bed first. The blanket was still on the floor. My dresser was where it always was. My lamp was on. My closet door was shut. Everything looked normal except for the dark shape near the side of the bed by the far wall, down low, where the lamplight didn't quite reach. At first, I thought it was a stack of clothes. Then I saw two long, pale fingers curl around the inside edge of the bedroom door from my side, very slowly, like whatever was behind it had been waiting with its hand already there. The glass slipped out of my hand and shattered in the hallway. I jumped back so hard my shoulder hit the wall, and the door moved a little more open from the force of my reaction. I saw more of it then. A face came out from behind the door at the height of my chest, not standing upright, not crouching the way a person would crouch. but bent wrong, with its head tilted so far to one side that it looked loose on its neck. The skin on its face looked gray in the lamplight, smooth in some places and tight in others, like it had been pulled over bone and not finished properly. Its eyes were open too wide. I could see the whites all the way around the dark centers, and it was looking right at me, with the kind of stillness that made it worse than if it had rushed me. Its mouth was slightly open. I saw thin teeth, too many at the sides, and I heard it breathe again. The sound came from deep inside it, but its mouth barely moved. One more hand slid around the door edge under the first one, both of them long and flat and too steady. It was peeking around my bedroom door the way a child would peek to see if someone was coming. And that alone broke something in me, because it meant it understood hiding. I backed away without taking my eyes off it and said, "No, because that was all I had." It stayed there, only its head and part of one shoulder showing from behind the door, watching me panic in the hallway like it wanted to see what I would do first. I could not make myself turn around to run. I kept expecting it to dart out the second I looked away, so I moved backward toward the living room, step by step, heel catching on the hallway rug, broken glass grinding under my shoe. It came farther out once I reached the end of the hall. Not fast, not with any kind of rush. It unfolded slowly from behind the door until I saw that it was taller than I had thought, but it held itself bent, with its arms hanging too low and its knees turned inward, as if standing upright was not the way it preferred to move. Its head stayed tilted while it stared at me. I could hear the ceiling fan in my bedroom behind it, still clicking, still turning, and that normal sound next to the thing in my doorway made me feel like I was losing my mind. Then it took one soft step into the hall, and I heard the skin of its foot drag on the floorboards. I turned and ran to the living room and grabbed my phone off the coffee table, because that was where it actually was. My hands were already slick. I almost dropped it trying to unlock it. I hit the emergency screen wrong twice. I could hear something in the hallway behind me, not fast, just moving, brushing the walls lightly as it came. I looked up and saw the hallway was still dim except for the light from my room at the far end. And then I saw its head slide out into view. It did not walk into the living room right away. It leaned around the corner and watched me from there the same way it had watched me from behind the bedroom door. Only now it was closer, and I could see the skin under its eyes looked damp. Its nostrils were moving. It was smelling the room, or smelling me. I hit the call button and put the phone to my ear, but I did not hear a ring. The screen had gone black. I pressed the side button again, and nothing happened. The battery had been at 60% earlier. I remember because I had looked at it while brushing my teeth. I smacked the phone against my palm, pressed the button again, and heard it move one step closer from the hallway corner. I said, "Get out!" And the sound came out thin and useless. The thing did not flinch. It smiled, not wide, not like a person, just a small pull at one side of the mouth, like it had been waiting for me to use my voice. It took another step, then another, and came fully into the living room. Its shoulders were narrow, but its arms were too long, hanging nearly to its knees. Its ribs pushed against the skin when it breathed. The legs bent strangely with each step, careful and deliberate, and the head never straightened. I snatched my keys off the side table and moved toward the front door. My apartment is small. Normally, you can cross it in seconds. That night, it felt like every piece of furniture had shifted farther apart. I unlocked the top lock, then the deadbolt, yanked the door open, and slammed into something solid on the other side. I stumbled back and looked out, expecting maybe a neighbor, maybe a package left in the way, maybe anything. But the hallway beyond my apartment door was dark. The building light that stays on all night had gone out. I could see the stair rail across the corridor, but only barely. It was like the darkness outside had thickened instead of the bulb failing. I stood there holding the knob, staring into that black hall, and heard the thing behind me take one more step across my living room rug. Then, from the darkness outside my apartment, I heard the same breath I had heard from inside my bedroom. I slammed the door shut so hard the frame shook. That was the moment I understood it was controlling where I thought it was. I spun around, and it was closer than it had any right to be, standing a few feet away beside the couch, looking at me with those wide eyes. It had not crossed the room while I was watching the door. It had just been farther away, and now it was close enough for me to smell it. The smell was not rot. I need to say that because rot would have made sense. This smelled warm and damp, like cloth left in a closed room too long, mixed with something metallic. I grabbed the lamp off the table and swung it at its head. I felt the ceramic base connect with something hard, and the lamp exploded in my hands. The bulb burst. The room dropped into darkness except for the blue light from the air conditioner panel down the hall and the street glow coming through the blinds. The thing jerked back, but not in pain, more like surprise. Then it made a sound I still hear in my sleep. It was louder that time, but there was something else in it, something pleased. I ran for the kitchen because it was the only place with drawers, anything sharp, anything I could put between me and it. I could hear it behind me now, moving faster, the slap and drag of those feet across the floor. I yanked the utensil drawer so hard it nearly came off the runners, grabbed the first knife I touched, and turned just as it reached the kitchen entrance. It stopped there like it knew exactly where the light from the stove hood ended and the dark of the living room began. It watched the knife in my hand, then looked back at me. I said, "Come on then," and I did not mean it. I was shaking so badly, the blade rattled against my own knuckles. It lowered itself slowly, bending until one hand touched the floor, then the other, folding down in a way no person could do without collapsing. Then it came into the kitchen on all fours, shoulders rolling, eyes never leaving my face. I backed up until my hips hit the counter behind me. Every cabinet, every magnet on the fridge, every dish in the drying rack suddenly looked too harmless to matter. I slashed at it when it got close enough. The knife caught along its forearm. I know it did because I felt resistance and saw something dark run over the skin. But it did not react. It only looked down at the cut, then back up at me, as if it had learned something useful. I shoved past the table and bolted for the bathroom, thinking lock, thinking one door, thinking time. It hit the wall behind me as I passed the living room, one long arm slamming into the plaster hard enough to crack it, and I heard the picture frame over the couch fall and break. I made it into the bathroom, slammed the door, and locked it, then threw my weight against it while I tried to breathe. The room was tiny and bright and normal in the worst possible way. Toothbrush on the sink, towel on the hook, dirty shirt on the floor. I remember staring at my own reflection in the mirror and not recognizing the face because my mouth was hanging open and my eyes were huge and wet. Then the doorknob turned once, slowly, then again, then stopped. I held the knife in one hand and the sink edge in the other, listening. There was no pounding, no scratching, nothing dramatic, just silence on the other side of the door. Then I heard it lower itself outside. I could hear skin and bone settle against the floorboards. It was down there, with its face near the gap under the door. I took one step back from the door and saw a shadow block the thin line of light beneath it. Then, very gently, one fingertip slid under the gap and hooked upward like it was testing the height. I bit down on my own wrist to stop myself from screaming. I looked at the bathroom window over the tub, even though I already knew it was too small. It opens a few inches at most, and there is a screen screwed in from the outside. I climbed into the tub anyway, shoved the window up as far as it would go, and felt the cold air on my face. I tried to pry the screen loose with the knife, but my hands were weak and numb, and the blade kept slipping. I heard something soft outside the bathroom door, like a mouth moving against wood, and then I heard my own voice from the other side, clear and low. "It's okay." I froze so hard my whole body cramped. The voice came again, and it was mine exactly. "Open the door." I felt everything inside me drop at once, not because it could copy my voice, but because it had waited until then to use it. I backed away from the window and stood in the tub with the knife pointed toward the door, staring at it while my own voice kept speaking from the other side in slow, careful little phrases. "You can go back to bed." Then, after a pause, "I'm leaving." It was learning which words made the most sense in the apartment. It understood what belonged there. I do not know how long I stood in that tub. Long enough for my legs to start shaking so badly I had to brace one hand on the tile. Long enough for the bathroom fan hum to start sounding like a voice, too. Long enough for me to realize the thing outside had stopped speaking, and I had no idea where it had gone. That was worse. I stepped out of the tub as quietly as I could. The floor was cold through my socks. I moved toward the door and crouched enough to look at the gap beneath it. At first, I saw nothing. Then one eye opened on the other side, pressed sideways to the floor, staring in at me through the gap. I stumbled back and hit the towel bar so hard it tore out of the wall. The metal clanged against the sink. In that same second, the bathroom door shuddered once under a hit from outside. Not enough to break it, just enough to remind me it could. Then again, harder. Then a third time. The wood split near the lock. I grabbed the trash can, wedged it under the handle even though I knew that was useless, and backed into the tub with the knife raised. One more hit cracked the frame. Another tore the lock plate halfway loose. Then it stopped again, and I heard it breathe right on the other side. I made the worst decision of the night because I thought it was my only one. I opened the door before it could break it. I yanked it inward and drove the knife forward with both hands, screaming through my teeth. And for one perfect second, I thought I had caught it off guard. The blade went into its shoulder. I felt it sink in deeper than before. The thing jerked, but instead of falling back, it lifted one arm and grabbed my wrist. Its hand was stronger than anything I have ever felt. Not crushing right away, just absolute. I could not pull free even with both feet sliding on the tile. It leaned close enough that its face was inches from mine, and I finally saw what was wrong with its eyes. They were not wide from fear or tension. They were wide because they did not blink. Not once. Not the whole time. It watched me strain against its grip with a calm, fixed stare, and then it opened its mouth wider than it should have been able to. I heard the jaw shift. I let go of the knife and slammed my free hand into its face, its throat, anything. and somehow that made it loosen enough for me to twist out of its grip and shove past it into the hall. I ran for the bedroom without deciding to. I think some part of me wanted space, wanted the window, wanted the room with light, even though that was where it started. My lamp was still on in there, throwing the same warm light across the bed like nothing had happened. The broken glass from the hallway glittered near the doorway. I slipped on it, caught myself on the dresser, and turned just as the thing stepped into the hall behind me. It straightened more than it had before, and seeing it closer to its full height made my stomach turn. Its head nearly brushed the top of the frame. The knife was still sticking out of its shoulder. Dark fluid ran down its arm and dripped from its fingertips, but it still did not seem hurt, just focused. It took one step toward me, and the bedroom door behind it slowly began to swing inward on its own until the opening narrowed around its body. The air in the room felt colder. The fan kept clicking overhead. I tried the window, shoved it up, and leaned out far enough to feel the drop below. 2 floors, concrete landing, no good angle, no time. I looked over my shoulder, and it was at the foot of my bed now. I had not seen it cross the room. It was just there, one hand on the mattress, pressing down into it as if testing where I had been lying before all this started. I said, "What do you want?" And I knew from the second I asked that I had given it something. Its head shifted slightly. It looked at the bed, then it looked at me. Then it made a small sound in its throat and pulled itself onto the mattress on hands and knees. It crawled up over the center of the bed slowly, sinking the blanket down under its weight, and stopped where my chest would have been if I had been asleep there. Then it lowered its face toward the pillow and breathed in through its nose. That was when I understood it had not been hiding in my room randomly. It had been at my door, looking in, because it had already chosen where I was supposed to be. It lifted one hand and patted the bed once, twice, almost gently, and then it looked at me again, waiting, asking without words. The room started spinning. I grabbed the dresser and threw whatever I could reach. A charger, a bottle of lotion, a book. None of it mattered. It only watched. Then it reached behind itself with one long arm and pushed the bedroom door until it clicked shut. I rushed it then because being trapped in the room with it made something animal take over in me. I jumped across the corner of the bed, shoved at its shoulders, tried to force it away from the door. It moved fast for the first time. One arm wrapped around my waist, the other around my upper back, and suddenly I was off my feet. It carried me backward with horrifying ease and dropped me onto the mattress right where it had been pressing its hand moments before. The springs slammed under my back. I kicked, swung, clawed, but it came over me in one smooth movement and pinned my wrists into the blanket. Its face hung above mine, close enough that I could see the wet shine along its gums and the dark line where the mouth stretched too far at the corners. I bucked against it hard enough to hurt my own spine, and it answered by lowering its face to the side of my head until its mouth was right by my ear. The sound went through my skull more than through the air. I screamed at it then. I screamed everything. "Get off me! Get off me!" It did not react like an animal. It listened like a person being spoken to. Then it did something worse than biting me or striking me. It settled. It laid its weight over me and pressed me deeper into the mattress until I could barely move my chest enough to breathe. One hand slid from my wrist to my throat, not squeezing, just resting there with complete control. The other smoothed over the blanket near my shoulder, as if calming me down. My legs kept kicking under the covers, then slowed because there was nowhere to go. My arms burned. My throat hurt. The The ceiling fan kept turning above us, clicking on every rotation. I stared past the thing's head at that fan because I could not keep looking into its face. I remember thinking that if I stopped moving, maybe it would loosen. If I stopped fighting, maybe it would change what it wanted. Instead, it lowered its head until one side of its face touched the pillow beside mine. We were both looking up at the fan then, side by side, except I was trapped under it, and it was comfortable. It wanted that. It wanted me in bed with it over me, both of us facing the ceiling like this had always been the place it was coming to. I turned my head toward the window because I could feel tears getting into my ears, and the reflection in the glass showed the bed from the side. I saw my body under the blanket, pinned and shaking, and above me that long, bent shape with its head tilted against the pillow like it belonged there more than I did. I do not know when fighting turned into just trying to breathe. My wrists were numb. My legs were cramping. The hand at my throat stayed light, but never moved. Every time I tried to lift my head, it pressed just enough to remind me. Once, somewhere in all of that, my phone lit up from the floor near the dresser. The screen flashed bright for a second from some delayed notification, enough to throw a little light across the room, and I saw the thing's eyes turn toward it. They reflected that light like an animal's would. Then the phone went dark again, and the room fell back into lamplight and shadow, and the steady clicking fan. I think I passed out once, or maybe I blacked out for a few seconds from lack of air. I only know because I remember the fan, then not remembering, then the fan again. The thing never left. When I came back to myself, it was still there, its face still near mine, its breath warm against my cheek. By the time morning light started to show around the blinds, I had stopped believing morning mattered. The lamp had burned all night. The room looked washed out and gray, but nothing changed. The thing remained over me, awake, watchful, patient. It had not dragged me anywhere. It had not torn me apart. It had just kept me there, exactly where it wanted me, because that was enough. I heard neighbors at one point, footsteps in the hall, a door opening somewhere else in the building, running water through the pipes. Ordinary life on the other side of my walls, so close it made me sick. I tried to shout once when I heard somebody laugh outside, but the hand at my throat tightened for the first time, just enough to cut the sound off and make black dots swim across my vision. I went still again after that. The footsteps faded. The day brightened. It stayed. The apartment smelled like broken plaster, lamp heat, metal, and that damp, warm scent coming off its skin. My bed felt ruined under me, soaked with sweat, twisted from all the struggling. Every few minutes it would lift its head and look toward the bedroom door, then back at me, like it was checking whether anyone else was coming. And each time it did, I remembered the first way I saw it, peeking around that doorway, already inside, already watching, already deciding. That is why I am telling it now exactly like this, and not cleaner, and not calmer. Because I need you to understand that some things do not come crashing in. Some things come into a room quietly and wait where they can see the bed. Some things hide behind a door just enough to watch you move closer on your own. Some things do not need to kill you right away, because being seen by them is enough to change every sound your home makes after that. Even now, every night, when I hear a door settle in another room, when a hinge moves an inch, when air pushes something half closed, I feel my whole body lock the same way it did in that hallway. I still sleep with the lights on when I can sleep at all. I still wake up with the feeling of a hand resting on my throat. And the worst part is this: I do not think it followed me because it never had to. I think it learned what it wanted from me that night. And I think once something knows how to wait behind a bedroom door, it knows how to do it anywhere. If you're listening to this, then the next time you see your bedroom door sitting open just a little, you need to ask yourself whether you left it that way, or whether something inside is already peeking out at you. If you have a horror story of your own, please feel free to drop it in the comment section. You never know, the next story could be yours. Subscribe to The Vault so you don't miss what comes next.